Yeah, I think she's.
She's definitely here. Oh, there's no way. I'm just going to.
Okay, so Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. So the very act of doing that is also blessing each other. Yeah, we're happy to see each other. We're happy. We bless each other. We bless each other. We see the divinity, right? So I want to, because we have been so messed up with our I wouldn't call it education system, I call it a schooling system in which we have been taught what to think, that we can't think outside it. Unless we've had some psychedelics or we've had like a out-of-body experience or near-death experience, childbirth, those kind of experiences can kind of kick you out of yourself. So we live in this imaginary sense of I amness that is created in us through our education, through our language. Your language is the first prison because you can't go beyond the language, right? The second thing is, then your education system says the word is the truth, not your experience. So the word is placed above your experience. So if the word says that the flame is cold and your experience says no, the word is right, right? So with this, it has carved a worldview, a way we look at ourselves and the world in this imaginary virtual sense of self. And this imaginary virtual sense of self is like a multi-dimensional mask, right? It's a different mask depending on where you are. But when you're with yourself, you can be with your mask, but most of the time you operate from the mask. We all do, right? This mask is what I would refer to as our mental sense of self, our self-image. And this self-image then has certain labels and attributes. Religion, gender, social norms, caste, blah, 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 blah. All those little bits are added to it to give it a construct, to make it, this is who I am. I come from da 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 da. You can describe yourself with all your attributes, but you can't tell me who you are. So you can tell me your age, you can tell me your gender, you can tell me how you feel, but you can't tell me who you are. That who you are is your essential self. So as we go into our meditation practice, as we become more aware of this, we become more familiar with that. And it's that knowing. It's there. Why is it there? Because you know it's there. It's not a belief. You're not saying, well, I think it's there. It's orange, or it's this, or it's that. You sit there and you feel that level of calmness, quiet, whatever you want to call it. But eventually it goes to stillness and it goes to silence. Stillness and silence. Even though the mind may be making a bit of noise somewhere, but ultimate reality is grounded on those two things. And you and I and everything else are simply little waves within this huge ocean called consciousness. So how do you know that's the case? So we have to test it out. Can't take Dov's word for it. No, we have to test it out. So we start looking at ourselves and say, okay, so far I've thought of myself, this is who I am. So let's deconstruct that a bit. Were you born with a name? If you were the only person in the world How would you describe yourself? Happy, probably. With all the drama out there. The way they have it, the only way they're going to prevent this virus is when they ask us to stop breathing, because then obviously we won't spread it. So ask yourself, right? When you were born, or when you became, let's just say, so we can argue this thing. When did you form who you are? And you say, well, when I was born. But that's not true. Because when you were born, there was no I to grasp onto. It wasn't my body. You're going to have to teach that to your child. So you create, it's the right thing to do. We all need a healthy ego. But we don't become it. And what we are now, and our ego then becomes the worldview. That becomes a worldview. This is what we think normality is. So do you remember back in the day, you could go into a supermarket any time of the day, no big deal. Oh, I think I'm going to go to Spain next week. Couple of phone calls. Before you know it, Madrid, here I am. Less than 18 months ago. How much freedom have we lost? Now the question is, which part of you's lost that freedom? Which part of you's lost that freedom? Is it your ego masked self? Or is it you? What do you reckon? Who's lost that freedom? It's because we were conditioned into it. That was the normality. Doesn't mean it's right. So ego ain't such a bad thing, mate. It's important to have one, right? But it's important not to become one. That's the crux of it. So we were conditioned. And what happened? Our conditions were cut out. This has created anxiety in us. Now, what's that anxiety telling you? What the anxiety is feedbacking to you, all of us, is something doesn't feel right here. Because anxiety is to do with fear is telling you something you need to do. Look at the feedback. Now, what can we do when you and I are all isolated? What can you do? This is now the crux of it. And what we do is we sit with ourselves, because that will reveal your truth. Do your meditation. Sit in your silence. Expect the unexpected. But be there to pick up other people's pieces, because that's what will be needed. Because the change that appears to be on the horizon is a change of significance. All that we have known to be our norm begins to shift again. Now here, we can contribute as well. Right? Bit of excitement. Ooh, we could create a really good future here, because the rubbish is falling apart. That's really what it is. So the censorship, all this kind of stuff that's going on, is because you only censor the other because you don't want them to reveal something. If you've got nothing to hide, why the censorship? I'm just asking. And then Gandhi, Mao, Amin, Gaddafi, all the good and the great. Hitler, didn't they exercise censorship? Modi, censorship. Censorship is used to shift the worldview. But the wonderful thing about that is that when I say you can't speak with me, you'll go and speak to someone else. You'll find something else where you can speak. So as one bit gets tighter, the other bit begins to expand. It's the yin in the yang. Yeah. So not to see it in this very myopic point of view. Oh my God, what's happening? Recognize what we're going through as a humanity is a shift that we could not have envisaged 12 months ago, 18 months ago. Even 12 months ago. Remember when he said, well, it's only for 6 weeks? Suckers. Yeah? Oh no, it's only now, can't even meet people that you know. How far does it go? When you say, hold on a second, this is ridiculous. I'd rather die. Because what kind of a life is it when you're in solitary confinement? And that is what is disturbing the peace, disturbing the sense of people's understanding. Where do they go? That motivates us, that allows us. So don't see it necessarily. This whole process is like a rebirth of a way we have to look at life, how we live in that life, how we work, how we deal with the circumstances that are around us, that at the moment seem to be moving in a very erratic way. So our expectation is that, look, keep things together, remain alert, let's have more fun. I hear. Communities are really important. And what happens in America, don't get involved in the politics unless you're that kind of a person. But that will have implications for many, many parts of the world and the way things are working at the moment. Because this is a much bigger picture than we have any comprehension of, as because our minds are contained, and therefore we don't see the incredible picture that's unfolding, where the fight for power and the fight for justice are now coming to a head, and justice will win, always does. And to have that trust and to build that trust, because it is now that trust that takes us. When we have nothing else to hold on to, then what do you hold on to? And here is where your mantra becomes your very root. If I hold on to the mantra, that has a particular quality. It maintains a particular awareness. Hence, mantras are so valuable. And why they're important now? Because it calms the mind down. But it also adds a healing energy to the wider space that we're in. So those are the practical steps we can take and maintain disengagement, but notice that there are changes coming about, but big changes, very big changes on many different levels, but not to be concerned, to notice, to know that just as we've had these changes, there may be some other changes which are much beneficial for us, right? But in a good way, all moving in the right direction. Know that, all moving in the right direction. Because to be able to see the light in the darkness is where real recognition and understanding comes in. Humanity has been going through this many times. We go through this every day, one way or another. It's just, that's it. Maintain conscious Be aware. Know the whole drama is like a dream, and we've got engaged in it, like the actors. And we have to play the part because we can't get out of it. If we could, we'd be in a different dream, but we're in this nightmare. So play the part that you have to play. Recognize that you don't need to add to the destruction. Don't add to the anger, all of that. It is what it is. You can't change it at this stage, but you can change yourself. And in being in that self, we affect many things around us. Maintain your practice, maintain your movement, maintain your support, whatever support we can offer. Maintain that as best as you can and offer it to others. But no, we are in auspicious time and life is good and it's only going to get better. Yeah. All right. Shall we begin with our meditation? Yeah. Tika, anything else you want? Yes. Yeah. So maybe some things that you may wish to consider are just we can't get to your supermarket because you haven't got the right color mask or whatever's going on. Make sure that we have some food accessible. Important. Yeah, important to have that. And water is also important to have that. Baby food, important to have that. Huh?
Yes.
Dog food, yeah, it's important to have that. Just, make preparation that if you couldn't get access to food for maybe a few weeks, you're okay, right? And also, just in case you lose some power, because, in Pakistan, they lost power all, Ukraine, they lost power, Vatican, they lost power, Italy, they lost power. And it may happen here as well that we may get intermittent power breaks. But just to make sure that you've got some candles and that kind of stuff, it's important to be prepared and not need, then need and not be prepared. Yeah. And if you have a little bit of cash, all good and well, but not too much. Yeah. But yeah. But it's just to be prepared. Better to be prepared and not, because things are moving so. Just things are just so volatile. Soon they may not. You can't access your money because you haven't got a COVID pass, or go to the supermarket. It's where does it stop? Really, you can see. I mean, remember those crazy conspiracy theorists back in the day last year? They were saying something big's coming here. Yeah. There's going to come a time you're going to need a little passport, otherwise you can't get your access to your. I remember that. I remember some friend of mine phoning me up and telling me all about it. I thought, oh, crazy man. Here we are today. No, it's crazy, is it? No. And now I think we have to recognize that things aren't the way they seem. Yeah. Maybe those nutters have something that's of value. Yeah. And to open to that kind of thinking, just open to it. Don't have to believe it, open to it. And say, all right, could be wild, but let's just go for it. Could be absolutely aliens, all sorts of things going on in there. It's all right.
And the media ain't going to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
You won't get the truth out of the media, especially now.
No. So, yeah, trust no one, trust your inner space. What it tells you is where it's at. Don't trust anyone, don't trust me, don't trust anyone. Know yourself, know your faith. If you have a faith, connect with that. And if you feel you haven't got a faith, then connect with that which makes you feel at peace, whole, whether it's your breath or whether it's a sound. Simple ways. Practice that. Same sound over and over again. Vaheguru, Vaheguru, Satnam, Vaheguru, Hales. They've left it for you, they've left it for me, but we've ridiculed it. We've been taught to ridicule it. Remember back in the day, you could sit with people and talk about your dreams? Can't do that now. You have to go to Google. Take an inner space away. Don't know who the hell you are. No one knows. Lost. And this is the big awakening. If you want to know what the awakening is, that's what it is. It's like, oh, I thought it was that. I'm not. How cool is this? And then knowing that you are. That little spark of life. Unchanging. All's good. Watching the show. Yeah. Send. That's about it, yeah? Okay. Just to make sure everyone knows what's going on. All right, okay, shall we begin? So, as ever, we will close our eyes, close our mouth. And as we breathe in, becoming aware of ourselves. So last week I spoke to you about 5 layers. And I want you to bring your focus to these 5 layers today. So let's begin with the solid layer. So see if you can get a sense of the surface of your body. Surface of your face, your teeth, your jaw, surface on your arms, maybe your hands. Just becoming aware of the surface. Includes all the bones, includes anything that exists in the form of a solid. Draw a slow, deep breath in and relax. Bringing your focus beneath your nose. Now I'd like you to bring your focus to your mouth and become aware of the liquid layer. The saliva, and as you begin to scan your body, all that liquid, see if you can become aware of your inner space and recognizing that liquid that makes your blood, saliva, tears in your eyes, the whole liquid. Deep breath in and relax. Coming back to your breath. Let's look at the third layer. The third layer is the layer of fire. So notice that you can sense your body. Become aware of your sensations. You can only sense that because there are nervous impulses, electrical impulses that run through those nerves that fire everything up. Become aware of your sensations as best as you can. Sensing your whole body. Deep breath in and relax. Bringing your focus back to your breath. Just sitting with your breath. Now let's look at the fourth element in your body, which is the element of gas, the element of air. So notice that there is this breath that comes into your body and a breath that goes out of the body. Notice as the breath moves in, the body changes. As the breath moves out, the body changes. The gas remains gas. It's not liquid. It's not solid. It's not the fire. It is a gas. So stay with your breath. And you will notice there are some parts of this breath has a start as it comes in, has an end as it ends. And then the out breath has a similar pattern, start, middle, end. See if you can notice the two ends of your breath. Stay with your breath. Notice if there's a difference between the in-breath and the out-breath. Notice at the end of your out-breath, there's a tiny little gap. See if you can notice how long the gap lasts. Stay with your breath. Notice that your breath has a temperature. Notice that your breath has a sound. Stay with your breath. On your next breath out, expand your awareness to include your whole body. Notice how the breath comes in, and there are subtle sensations. Breath goes out, there's a subtle sensation in the body. On your next breath out, let's look at the fifth element. Notice the space within you. The space in your mouth, space that runs all through you. Everything held together within space. See if you can just bring your focus to the space element within you. And then just using this bell as a vehicle to expand the space. Allowing the sound of the bell to expand your space. Notice the silence, notice the stillness, notice the space. Notice how your awareness is boundless. And if you're not the solid layer, you're not the liquid layer, you're not the moving gas, you're not the space, you're not the fire, then who are you? In that silence, you still exist. Gently bringing your focus just beneath your nose. Gently bringing your focus just beneath your nose. And sitting with your breath. Stay with your breath. Lock yourself with your breath. Stay with your breath. Stay with your breath. Notice how your breath feels. Notice that your breath is changing constantly. The in-breath becomes the out-breath. The out-breath becomes the in-breath. Change of your breath. And just like the breath can't be, everything else follows the same pattern. Start, middle, end, start, middle, end. Just as you have an in-breath and an out-breath, life has a duality. There is light and there is dark. Just as the breath has to be in balance, so does everything else. Notice how your breath breathes by itself. You are the observer. You're doing the breathing is happening. You are simply. It's not that you are making a decision to breathe. The breath breathes by itself. This is Hukam, the unfolding nature of this moment. Just as the breath is changing, so is your blood. So is all the liquid elements within you. The blood is being circulated around the body by itself. Doesn't need your intervention. See if you can get some sense of that. How the mouth produces its saliva, how the eyes coat themselves with moisture. Just noting that. Just noting that. Everything, just like the breath, the liquid layer is also changing, as is the fire layer, the sensations, and as is the solid layer. Yet you remain unchanging. See if you can notice that. Yet that space layer never changes. On your next breath out, begin to listen to the sounds around you. Follow the sound of the bell. See if you can notice the silence. Listening. And in that silence, know that you're safe. Know that you're complete. Know that you're whole. Know that everything is happening as it needs to happen. And know in your heart, trust your knowing. And every moment you spend in peace is putting the fires out. It is time to choose wisely. When you hear the next bell, use this bell to draw a few deep breaths in, and in your own good time, gently close your eyes. How did you find the 5 layers? So please, yeah, who am I? What am I? And it's a really nice, simple one for you to do. Just focus on the solid part, focus on the liquid. So it's solid, liquid, fire, gas, space. All of those things are what everything is made of. Difference is we know it. That's the difference. We can know it. So when you go through that, you will come to that space as you described, Sue. It's a nice, calm space. But also, more importantly, by doing that, you can really know exactly where you are with different parts of your body, how you made up. It's a way of diagnosing yourself as well. We'll do a workshop on that one day, yeah, if we get a time. Anyway, thank you very much. So, Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.